To be honest, man, I was selling weed. And I caught a case. I had a year of house arrest. I didn't have nothing to do. I was a felon. I was a college dropout. Nobody would hire me. So then I was like, how can I channel all of this stuff that I've learned into like a business? And I converted it into just selling blanks. I lived in my mom's house until I made my first M. Is it something that you're passionate about, or is it something that like you just want to have that image and that lifestyle? When Kobe wins a championship, he ain't at the club the next day, bro. He's literally waking up at 5 a.m. He goes back to the gym and does the same shit over again because he's so in love with the process.
In this video, it's gonna be super special, super impactful. I need you to watch it from start to finish, all right? Because we're gonna sit down and have a conversation with Superline E. Superline is a wholesale distributor out in Atlanta, giving you special product like stack pants, extendo tees, things that you're not gonna be able to find on your traditional distributor like Alpha Broda or SNS. E going crazy. So I don't want you to miss none of this information. So make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, run us up. Let's go ahead and go get straight into that video.
To be honest, man, I was selling weed. And I caught a case. I had a year of house arrest. I didn't have nothing to do. I was a felon. I was a college dropout. Nobody would hire me. So my dad was like, why don't you just come work for me? And he was selling, you know, when you go to the flea market, all them bullshit ass tees. The Only God Could Judge Me, the Jordan knockoffs. He was selling that, and I went in there and I was like, bro, I can't be selling this. So I just started working in the warehouse. I started printing shirts, and I just kind of put two and two together. And I've been doing it for probably about 8 years now. But I transitioned into like just selling blanks. So I had a failed brand, and then I was like, bro, I'm a terrible designer. I'm a terrible artist. I'm a terrible clothing brand owner. So then I was like, how can I channel all of this stuff that I've learned into like a business? And I converted it into just selling blanks. So that's how I'm here today.
Appreciate that. And through that process, like, you've been able to see a whole lot of brands pretty much like get started
every day
from the ground up. Like, what are like some of those biggest mistakes that you see them come in and talk about when they first get started?
I mean, it's a lot, bro. I think the first thing is like even just having a brand. I mean, I'm just being real. It's such a saturated market, you know, and everybody wants to have a brand, and it's like, is it something that you're passionate about, or is it something that like you just want to have that image and that lifestyle? Like for me personally, I can't tell you what's going to work for you, but what worked for me was I had a shitty brand. Like I had a brand that it wasn't hitting, it wasn't busting, and for me to convert into selling blanks and transferring all that knowledge over, that's when I really found success. So I think starting off is just you really got to have a product that people want, and you got to be able to tell a story. I mean, what do you always say? If you can't give it away for free, shit, you're not gonna be able to sell it for nothing. So I think that's the number one thing is a lot of people get in there and they, you know, I mean, but that shit is true though. That shit is true. You know, like you might have like your homeboy or your cousin or somebody like, yeah, I'll fuck with it because it's like you my boy. But like, can you get a stranger to buy your product? If you can't do that, then it's like you need to go back to the drawing board and start over. And there's nothing wrong with that because again, everything that I've succeeded on was from failure. So there's nothing wrong with that, but you just got to be able to catch it early and be like, yo, this shit ain't it. Let me move on, you know?
Yep. I got a question because like, honestly, what I love about just the Superline brand and just you in general is like you truly like stay on trends. Mm-hmm. Like how are you staying on these trends, and what should like upcoming brand owners like realize with the trends on, you know, putting their brands in the forefront?
I think it's, I really like this shit. You know, like if you look at my competition, if you look at my competition, it's an old Asian dude, right? He probably going home, he probably watching Korean dramas. Like he probably don't listen to rap music. He probably don't go on World Star Hip Hop. He not on Shade Room. So for me, it's like, it's nothing like I'm just doing what I like. So maybe as I get older, it's a little bit different. But right now I'm still young enough to where it's like, shit, I like Sexy Red. You know, I like that music. Like, I listen. Like even my girl be like, I do. Yeah.
Hey, I really truly love that. And I mean, honestly, just with you being transparent, because we got on here, we talked about telling your story and being transparent. Like, how are you truly able to stay transparent with your audience, and how can like the creators that having a brand, because bro, like the last month, bruh, I gotta talk like you've been on motherfucking fire with that content. Like you've been on fire with that fucking content, dog. Yeah. So like, how have you been able to stay consistent and transparent with making that content?
I mean, it's one, you just gotta wake up and have the discipline to create every day, right? Like there are days where I wake up and I'm like, shit, I ate too many chicken wings. I'm looking bloated as hell, but like, fuck it, I'm getting on the camera. I'm creating something. And there's probably, for every video that you see that goes viral, there's probably 10 of them that like I posted and I deleted, right? So it's just being consistent. And then the second thing is just being authentic. At the end of the day, like whenever you tell your story, people can always tell if you're telling the truth or if you're telling a lie. And it's just human nature. So I always tell people the honest truth. And I always tell people, like, people come to the store and be like, what do you think about this shirt? I sell the shirt and I'll be like, that shit trash. Like, I just keep it real. Because the next time I tell them like, yo, this shirt is fire, guess what? I've already built that rapport with them to where they're going to trust me and believe me and they're going to buy that shirt. So I just keep it real 100 times, and like it or love it or hate it, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm going to just do what I do. So,
man, honestly, I want to do, because like, just with your transparency, I think that I can't do you enough justice. So I want to do something different that we never really did on podcasts before. And we're going to drop the mic and go a cappella. So I want to ask a few people in the audience like that may have a few questions, because I know they see you going crazy. They see you manufacturing. They see you starting from start to finish, making product and selling them the blanks that they're getting to make their margins. Like, they obviously have to have some questions. So let's
got questions?
Let's go with the audience. Any questions out there?
I got something for you. All right, so, you know, in the game that we in, you know, a lot of times people think that, we sell a bunch of product and we make a lot of money. But, in reality, those margins are, sometimes very, very slim. So talk about like how disciplined you gotta be when it comes down to selling that product, but then reinvesting into that product. Because when we was at Magic Trade Show, I feel like you dropped like a bag on blank varsity jackets that you probably only gonna sell for $5 or $10 more. You know what I mean? Which those margins are very, very slim. How do you stay, disciplined and focused on selling that product and then reinvesting into your business? So
I learned from my first boss, right? Major big drug dealer. He told me one thing: all money in. And when I went out to LA one time, right? I was like, I seen how he was living. He's living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And mind you, this guy's probably making M's, right? And he driving a Prius. And I went to him, I was like, bro, why are you living like this? Like, you got M's, right? And he told me, he looked me in the eye, he said, all money in. So I think a lot of people, they get so caught up in like, let me get the likes, let me get the Louis Vuitton, let me get the designer, and all that shit is cool. But at the end of the day, like, that should be a surplus. So that should be whatever's left over, right? So this guy is like literally making M's, and he's literally driving a Prius. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I just need to go make money and then reinvest it and reinvest it. And the other thing is you taught me, stinky fish. You gotta stay away from stinky fish. So stinky fish is leftover inventory. Whenever you're selling clothes or anything that's product based, the one thing you wanna be like conscious of is stinky fish. And sometimes you might have invested $10 into a product, but if it started laying around and started rotting and started smelling, guess what? You gotta get rid of it for $8. And you gotta lose your $2 on it, but at least you won't have the capital back to reinvest it in something that's gonna sell. So, I mean, the main thing is one, reinvest all money in. I mean, to be honest, like, and fully transparent, I lived in my mom's house until I made my first M. And that's an M profit. So I was like 28, I was dating my wife, literally living in my mom's house, and I had a Hyundai with 3 door handles. One of them broke. Like, I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? And then the other thing is leftover inventory. You want to make sure, like, a lot of people, they fall in love with their inventory. They're like, yo, I put so much love into this. I designed this. But at the end of the day, if you pay 10 and no one's willing to pay 12 for it, get rid of that shit for 8 and move it and keep it pushing. So, I mean, that's the best advice I can give y'all.
For sure.
Anybody else out there?
Y'all gonna make me ask everything?
We got one back, 2 right here, Justin, and then we got back here. Go ahead, you got it. Justin, you got it. Go ahead, boss. Either one, it don't matter.
Yeah.
Somebody come.
I was going to ask you, though, like me being a clothing brand owner on order from Superline for a while now, I got my first blank of chocolatewear from y'all. How do you ship so fast? That's one thing I realized. Your shipping is so, top tier, and I realized it gets to be pretty fast. I just want to ask that question.
I'm in love with the process. Like, a lot of people in the clothing brand space, they want to get dripped out, have the nice shit, take the nice Instagram photos. Guess what? My Instagram is not busting at all. Like, none of my fits is cracking. You know why? I'm in the warehouse shipping out orders. So the one thing I do with my team is I let them know, like, hey, when somebody orders from us, it gotta go out same day, next day. And I think that's an aspect of the business that a lot of people forget is like, yeah, you could have the craziest designs, you could have all the celebrities wearing it, but you can still win on having fast shipping. You can still win on having good prices, right? Like there are going to be companies like Hellstar, right? But that's like 1 in a million. But then there's like Fashion Nova. Like Fashion Nova selling a shirt for $9.99, but they shipping it out so fast. So you got to kind of figure out what your lane is. And for me personally, again, I'm not the most dripped out dude. Like I'm not the most cool guy. So I was like, let me just go in my lane, which is I'm willing to do the dirty work that nobody else is willing to do. So for me personally, I set the tone with my team where on a Monday when we come in and there's 200 orders, guess what? I'm picking, I'm packing, I'm shipping. So that way when they come, they see me and they see the owner and the boss doing it, what they gonna do? Sit on the sidelines? Nah, they're gonna be doing the shit with me. So that's the number one thing is don't get so caught up in like, if you a cool guy, go ahead, do that. If you like Hellstar, go ahead and do that, right? But for everyone else that's not cool like me, you can make your money doing the dirty work. I mean, think about it. There's lawn mowing companies out here making M's, right? Not everybody got to be a fucking designer and be all cool. You could do the dirty work. There's a sanitation workers making M's. Like, ain't nothing wrong with that, you know?
Justin?
So I was going to ask you, because you've been on both sides with owning a brand and then also supplying all the brands. So can you talk a little bit about negotiation tactics? Because I found that like when you negotiate too hard, they skimp you on the quality.
Yeah.
Or if you don't. So where is the line that you want to toe to get the best price, but also maintain the quality too? And how do you navigate the conversation?
So to be honest, I'm probably not the best negotiator. I mean, if you're talking about getting the best price, that's not going to be me. But I think it's a, somebody once told me, it's a thin line, but a thick wall, right? Because like what Justin said, if you go in there and you that guy that's just like nobody wants to work with you and you always talking about, let me knock it down 50 cents, 25 cents. Well, guess what? The factory, they're going to skimp you and they're going to be like, fuck this guy, right? Me personally, I just like to pay in full because then they're willing to work with me and they're going to want to work with me, right? And the best way to negotiate is volume, right? If you go to the guy who's selling weed and you're like, bro, let me get a 7, but can you take off $5? He gonna look at you like, bro, you getting a 7, like that shit is nothing, right? But if you go in there and you're like, let me get 20 pounds, shit, all of a sudden, that number start dropping real fast. So the best way you wanna grow is volume. Volume is the number one thing. That's the best way. And at the end of the day, like selling clothes, selling weed, it's all the same thing. So volume. Volume is the best way.
Appreciate that. Hey, man, I want everybody maintain the volume when we talking. I want to go ahead, Everett.
All right, so I understand how you send all money in, but then you said that you re-end up with all the profit. So at what point do you stack the money?
Every day. Every day. The money come in, I'm stacking it every day. I mean, it's I think the number one thing is you want to keep your monthly as low as possible. Like if you got a car payment, if you got a crazy ass rent, if you got a crazy ass lease, and you committed to these long-term monthly payments, you shooting yourself in the foot. Like when I was living at my mom's house, I did that not because I couldn't afford to go move out. I could go afford to move out. I could go pay $1,500 for an apartment in Atlanta. But I was like, yo, if I sign that lease, then that's $1,500 times 12, right? Then I got gas, then I got cable, then I got internet, right? So all of a sudden that $1,500 turns into $2,500. So the best way to do it is you want to keep your monthly as low as possible. And then when I moved out, I had enough money for a year's worth of rent. So I was like, oh shit, I put away 20 racks. Worst case scenario, like if my business fails, if everything fails, I already got it up front. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I do a lot of my deals. Even when I buy cars, I don't, like I just bought a Tacoma, right? I'm not over there like, oh, what's the monthly? I got 50 bands already times 6 to pay for the car 6 times over. So I'm not gonna buy that car unless I have 10 of the monies to go buy that car. Because then when I go give away the 50, it's like, whatever, I got 10 more I could buy. So I think a lot of people, they get caught up in like, yo, because if you do monthly, that's the hustle, right? All these companies that are trying to get you monthly is they really trying to hide how much they're going to get out of you, your lifetime value, right? When you go buy a car, what do they say? They don't tell you, oh, you're going to spend $80,000 on a car. They say, oh, your monthly is only going to be $700. But guess what? 700 times 10 years is 80,000. So you got to think about everything as like, what am I paying out of pocket in total and not just the monthly? And the number one thing you want to miss, like you want to skip out on is any sort of monthly lease or payments like that. Like that's how they get you.
I feel I got a good hot 2 to 3 questions out there. Right here.
Real quick. I got a quick question for you. Just in terms of when I think of wholesale and like the scale that goes into, like I feel like it can be a lot larger than like the scale that we think about and worry about on a day to day. How did you scale? Like how did you start the scaling?
Bro,
the things you had to
just day to day. Like I showed up every day. When I first started, there was nobody at the store. So guess what? I put up 100,000 for my first container of shirts, right? But you guys know t-shirts is like the most commoditized business. You go into Alphabet, they selling shirts for $2.20. Should I pay $2? What am I gonna do? Make 20 cents? I can't. So I started printing on shirts, and I started doing like vinyl patches, 25 cents, and I started selling them for $6, right? So I think the number one way is, again, it's a long-term process, right? Like when you get into like wholesale and you get into these volume games, it's not going to happen overnight. When you're in the retail business, you might get lucky on like one product and you might be able to triple up, quadruple up, or do the pre-order method, right? But when you get into like wholesale and these commoditized businesses, it's just going to take a long time. And like even the stuff that I'm moving now compared to what Alphabet and all these other Jewish guys are moving, it ain't nothing. But those guys have had generations of it too. So I think that's the other thing is it might not happen in your lifetime, right? Like you guys see me here today and you're like, oh, Superline Wholesale, this is the guy, whatever, whatever. But what you didn't see is the 40, 50 years that my parents put in for me to be here to where I'm at today. Because they've been selling the Only God Can Judge Me shirts for 30 years, making $1 per. But that built the foundation for me to come in and really put gasoline on it to grow. So something that I think is overlooked a lot of times is like, sometimes it might not happen in your lifetime. Sometimes you might be the one to set it up for your kid or your, you know what I'm saying, your family line. So that's the other thing is it's not gonna happen fast, bro. Like you just seeing the highlights, but you didn't see the 30 years that my parents put into it. And I just happen to be the lucky one to be in front of y'all and be in the cameras, you know? I hope that makes sense.
Hey, we got one last question out there. Who we got? Who gonna be a lucky contestant? Don't hold back. Now, have you already?
Don't ask all at once.
Malik, right here, last one.
So I really want to touch on this all money in concept because like when you say all money in, like what do you like? I get it, but like I want you to like so like everything you're making is literally just being circulated back into buying more product. Is that what you mean?
So if you have a clothing brand, I would say it's a little bit more risky because let's say you have a graphic printed shirt and it doesn't sell, I wouldn't go all money in on that, right? Because again, then you're gonna end up with stinky fish, right? With the business that I'm in, it's a little different because a black t-shirt is gonna sell while you alive, while your kids alive, you know, it's gonna sell for the rest of our lives, right? So with the retail brand, it is a little different, but the whole concept is that whatever you making, you're not spending it. You know what I'm saying? Like when I moved out of my mom's house, I was realistically doing probably like anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a day, you know, 20% margin. So I'm making like 2-3 bands a day. So technically I could have gone out and got an apartment, but it's like, I wanted all that money to go back into the infrastructure. So it doesn't necessarily have to always be inventory. Sometimes it could be your staff, right? Even having the infrastructure, right? Or it could even be reinvesting in digital, right? Maybe you go and hire, instead of you paying yourself, you go and hire a videographer so that way you can get more followers and you can get more digital real estate. So I think the one thing you got to think about is like, what does it look like for you? Because for a retail brand owner, it is a little bit more difficult because just because you go and spend $100,000 on inventory doesn't mean it's going to sell. Whereas like for me, if I go spend $100,000 on black shirts, worst case scenario, I could sell it at cost or even like a couple cents below. But the whole concept is that you're not out here living your life, right? Like, you know how people like, they'll have a big win and they go Friday night, they go clubbing or they go, you know, vacation or whatever, right? It's kind of like the idea of like, you're going to get these wins, but then you're not going to really celebrate them because you just back in the lab. Like when Kobe wins a championship, he ain't at the club the next day, bro. He's literally waking up at 5 a.m. He goes back to the gym and does the same shit over again because he's so in love with the process. So I think all money in isn't necessarily like just finances. It's also like a mentality of like, don't get comfortable. And like when you do have a win, when you do hit, you know, a couple $1,000s in a day, don't go out there and go buy something nice, you know, like figure out, go back, wake up in the next morning and go back to work. I'm in it to play the game. I'm not necessarily in it to like win, you know? And I think that's when you start to win is when you fall in love with the process. Like for me, I would do this for free, bro. Like I will work for free. You know what I'm saying? I'll go to work tomorrow. Even my wife gets mad at me all the time. She's like, why are you always going to work? But for me personally, I do it every day if I could. I love it. You know, and I think that's what breeds the success and the results, is that like, I'm just trying to play the game, bro. And I'm just trying to practice and have fun and shoot these shots. I'm not really worried about the trophies and all the other shit. Like I just want to cook and work, you know? Yep. Hopefully that makes sense.
Like if your biggest thing is just to get money out of this, you might as well just go work. Because honestly, owners of companies make impacts for income. All right, we go back to that. Like entrepreneurs solve problems for profit. So like if you're not in the business to solve a problem and you just really want to sell a product, shit, just come work for me. You could just sell a shitload of my product and I'll pay you a percentage. Like, you don't even have to get the headache of trying to hire, fire, market, and stop beating yourself up about that shit. And come on over here and I'll pay you to sell product.
You gotta worry about somebody all in the video.
Promoting, all in the studio. You know, like short guy, tall guy, you know what I mean? But seriously, like what do you do this for? And I'm challenging everybody in here to challenge themselves on that, because I guarantee you, like, you're gonna see more success when you truly do it for your why rather than like doing it for the dollar. Because like I hear my guys in the back, I heard this from Support Black College when I met with them and Justin and Corey. It's just like, you know, impact over income. Like the more impact that you make in the world, you're gonna receive more income. And we didn't even know that before we heard it, because we was just like, no, we was selling product. We like, man, it's bigger than this. You could go scroll back down on our Instagram. We got like 7, 8-year-old kids talking about how they want trust in their vision to be firefighters and basketball players and teachers. And now we realize that, dang, that's what y'all was all gravitating to right there. Because it wasn't that we were just selling a product, it was the fact we was going to play basketball with kids and going to these different seminars and creating that YouTube channel that's inspiring the next people to really rise above. It wasn't the product that got y'all here. The product didn't get y'all here. It was the information, it was the community that we created is why everybody is sitting down in these seats right now or standing up. It wasn't the product. The product may have caught your attention, but it was the fact of what we was doing behind the product that made you buy in and believe. So I need everybody in here to challenge themselves and look in the mirror, because sometimes that's hard. We talk about all that all the time in the workshop. You know, we look in that mirror brushing our teeth, but our head down, you know, and we wonder why our head down, because sometimes we're ashamed of the person that we are. Like we know that we're supposed to be going harder. And like to look in that mirror and looking ourselves in the eye and say that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing or giving our all, like almost shames us. You know, it makes us feel down, so we don't look ourselves in the mirror. But I challenge yourself to like look yourself in the mirror, like in the eyes in the mirror, and talk to yourself and like tell yourself like, man, you got this, you could do it. Like what I'm doing this for, like what type of impact what legacy do I want to leave? Like, what do I want to be remembered for? Who I want to be remembered as? I hope everybody here, you know, show up to my funeral and be like, you know, like, God damn, that was a great person. Like, he helped so many people. He helped me. He got me where I needed to be. And that's the same shit that you need to be doing, because the more people that you impact, the more income that you're going to receive. And stop focusing just on income and wondering why you're not making income. You know why? Guess what? We just said, because you're not making impact. You ain't helping nobody. You ain't adding no value to nobody's life. Period. All you want to do is suck up. You want to figure out, oh, how can I get in that room so I can get all the information I could get to make the much money that I could get? But you don't go in the room and be like, damn, how can I add as much value to this person that's doing the stuff that I want to do so I can learn the things that they got, so I can get the things that they get? You just want to come and get the information and take it away. Like, you just want to take it away. Like, you don't want to give no value for that shit. But that goes from starting with your why, like, and why you doing the things that you're doing. All right, so once again, I want to challenge everybody to look themselves in that mirror and go to that back and get a shot.